In this video, we're going to talk about a few practical Zoom skills that are necessary and helpful for creating meaningful, interactive groups online. So 3 things to be effective as a pastor or a leader in leveraging Zoom tools are: number 1, a mindset, which I'll talk about. Number 2, familiarity with Zoom, basic familiarity. And lastly, facilitation methods, which we're going to talk about in this video and then model in the upcoming video. As far as mindset, there are 3 key things that I find most helpful in people who lead awesome, engaging, beneficial Zoom meetings. Number 1 is, when you facilitate a Zoom meeting, realize that it's important to value interaction as much as information. A Zoom meeting gives you the ability to not just present information, but to present information and then facilitate interaction. And this is where the dynamite happens. This is where people begin to connect and feel like they're valued and desire to, deepen relationships with one another. So we're going to model how to facilitate a Bible study that utilizes not just a lecture, but a discussion-oriented question format to maximize the potential for interaction. Number 2, for the mindset, realize that when you start utilizing Zoom online tools, there's going to be awkwardness. Embrace it. There's a learning curve. Anytime you're trying a new thing, there's going to be stuff to figure out. There's awkward pauses. There's this didn't go right. So give yourself grace and embrace, as you implement an online strategy, there will be awkward moments. Number 3, think ahead for reproducibility and keep things simple. When you utilize an online meeting tool, think not just about how to facilitate an effective, beneficial gathering, but realize that how you're leading that gathering is an imprint and a model for others to follow. So keep it reproducible, keep it simple, and you just might see a Zoom strategy for gathering with people around the teachings of Jesus start multiplying throughout your community and beyond. So a couple practical tips about logistics. I've worked with pastors all over America and Europe in implementing Zoom meetings to deepen relationships in their church community and to form new relationships with their church community. And I've learned a few things that are most beneficial as far as logistics. Number 1, if you have a group that's larger than 12, I encourage you to have a co-moderator. And on your screen, you'll see an easy way to do this is to go into your dashboard and assign someone as a co-host. That gives them the ability to manage the screen while you're talking, to talk with you, to monitor the chat. And a co-moderator is super helpful for groups larger than 12. Number 2, if you are teaching in a lecture style, a sermon or a monologue, mute all participants to eliminate background noise. There's nothing more awkward than the person who gets up to use the bathroom and forgets their microphone is on, and you have interesting background noises right in the middle of your powerful point you're making about how Jesus transforms lives. It's funny, but it's awkward. So participants can mute their mic themselves, or as the moderator or your co-moderator has the ability to mute all people, and then each participant can manually unmute themselves if they want to make a comment. And lastly, on logistics, is if you have a group larger than 12 people and you want to have meaningful interaction, discussion, Q&A, prayer for each other, utilize breakout rooms. These are a phenomenal tool that Zoom offers and you can pre-assign people to certain groups, or you can do it randomly. But breakout rooms are awesome for taking a large online Zoom meeting and making it intimate, where people actually have time to get to know each other, to engage and care for one another. So 4 Zoom skills that I recommend as basic and most beneficial. Number 1, utilize the chat function to everyone or individuals. The chat function is simply in your dashboard, enable the chat function, and then participants, as you're talking or someone is talking, they can ask a question, they can make a comment, they can message each other individually, or they can message the whole group. Groups that use the chat function are much more engaged because most people don't want to just sit and watch someone. They want to interact. Chat helps people do that. Number 2, utilize the share screen function. If you're presenting scriptures, click your share screen, click the document you want to share. I recommend in advance making a PowerPoint document or a PDF that you can click on and then click to share your screen, and then you can just scroll through the pages. Your video will continue to be on your participants on their screen, but they will also see the content that you want to share. Next, when you share a screen, utilize the annotate features. Luke's going to model how to do this on the screen, but participants click their options, scroll down to the annotate functions, and then participants can begin writing comments or underlining. And this is an amazing way to get a section of scripture up on the screen. Let's imagine you have 10 people interacting around a Bible study. People aren't just reading the text on the scripture, they're actually able to underline it, and then everybody else sees what they've underlined. We're going to model this for you in the next section, but we found the annotate feature to take people's engagement and desire to continue meeting in Zoom up significantly. So lastly, for Zoom skills, optimize your settings when you're sharing video and audio. Let's say you're a pastor, a leader, you want to play a YouTube video, you want to play a video that's embedded in your PowerPoint file. Implement this, optimize the settings in the checkboxes when you share your screen, and that will massively increase the quality of audio that comes through. So lastly, for facilitation, when you lead a Zoom meeting, there's a difference between presenting information and facilitating interaction. Interaction is where the relationships happen. It's where people feel known, heard, valued. They have something to contribute. And in order to create meaningful Zoom meetings, ask thought-provoking questions. Okay, classic example of a question not to ask is you're reading a section of scripture and you say, what do you guys think about that? It's so open-ended that, or so general, it's hard to engage with. On the other end of the spectrum, not so great example of a question is you read a scripture about prayer and you ask, so guys, let's have some interaction here. Does Jesus want us to pray? Obviously the answer is yes, but it doesn't provoke thought. So ask thought-provoking questions. A good example of this is, hey, in this story, what really sticks out to you as far as a characteristic of Jesus? Or what do you think the people in the story were feeling at this moment? That gets people to connect with the story, think about their own life, and then to begin to create dialogue together. Number 2, for facilitating quality interactive Zoom meetings, keep the momentum going. There's nothing worse, well, there are things worse, but one of the worst things for mistakes that I see leaders make when they create Zoom meetings is they let them drag on for hours, and there's 3-minute pauses, and it's boring. As a facilitator of a Zoom meeting, you must keep momentum going. That means, you're saying things like, okay, well, let's move on to the next section. Any more thoughts about that? We'll give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, no more. Okay, let's move on to the next thing. This keeps people engaged and wanting to continue to participate both on that meeting and in the future. Keep momentum going. And lastly, leave room for Q&A. If you want to be the Bible answer man or just the one doing all the talking, Zoom is great for, creating those kind of meetings, but it's so much more effective if you leave room for questions and answers and comments and quality interaction, and actually gives people a chance to get to know you and you to get to know them. Church is not just a meeting, and the gospel is not just information. Jesus builds his church through relationships, and the only way to deepen relationships is to actually have interaction. So those are some practical tips I hope you find helpful. In our last session, we're going to model how to ask thought-provoking questions, keep momentum going, leave time for Q&A, and facilitate an interactive Zoom meeting that we hope helps you take your church into a season of leveraging online resources to deepen relationships in your community and form new relationships to help you expand the gospel in your city and beyond.
Postmodern Pulpit builds and maintains beautiful church websites so you can do the ministry while we do the webistry.